All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Up and In Show. I am here in Cards and Culture. Usually I am on the purple couch, but it is behind me because I'm on Zoom today and I got a special guest, my guy, Buster Scher. Thank you so much, dude. Appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, so thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Always
Yeah,
happy to talk.
absolutely. So you're the founder of Hoops Nation, right? That kind of started your journey, but I like to think that, I mean, you're more than that. You're a personal brand and you've just evolved into so many things. So I'm really excited to dive into this conversation because my podcast is all about sports performance and business. And I feel like you check all those boxes, whether it's, sports stuff, your podcast, your personal brand, obviously that's related into business stuff. So I'm excited to dive in. But I think the first thing that I like to do is ask people how they define themselves, because obviously I see you from social media and things like that. But maybe you could introduce yourself to some of our listeners.
Sure. Yeah, I started Hoops Nation when I was super young, 14, 15 years old. Was doing play-by-play broadcasting at the same time, doing high school sports. And then when I was still in high school, won best in the country for play-by-play under 18. And that sort of got me in the door on top of having this Hoops Nation platform, which by the time I graduated high school, allowed me to not even apply to college and move into the city into New York City on my own and start hosting shows for the NBA overtime. I worked for when I was still in high school, I worked for a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. So a lot of different stuff. And then um, and then kept building Hoops Nation, built my personal brand up more, started the podcast in
Yeah.
2018. And then eventually, got back into collectibles, which is something that I was into when I was, 12 through 15, but then kind of left it, when A, it wasn't cool, and B, I was trying to be cool.
Exactly.
So the combination of those things from, I guess 2016 to 2018, not that many people were in the hobby.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
so, but got back into it before COVID, like 2019,
Nice.
uh, buying just stuff that I really liked
Yeah.
because business was going well. And it was the first time that I was actually able to get things that I wanted
Yeah.
instead of like three tiers below the things that I wanted. And then, all through that, big history guy. So I started collecting like historical, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, just diving into, items of theirs. And then, yeah, a lot of different companies. I invest in companies that I'm just passionate about. Bagel company, portable basketball hoop company, a
Yeah.
crypto, platform for creators, a lot of different stuff. And, obviously went into, have been in digital collectibles for a little while now. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
How old are
million,
you?
turned 22 in August.
Holy shit. I love
Mm,
that, dude.
22.
Yeah, that's amazing. So are you from the Northeast originally?
Yeah, Connecticut. I actually grew up
Nice.
in
Okay.
Brooklyn
Okay.
until sophomore year of high school and then moved to Connecticut and finished high school out there.
Very nice. Okay. So I'm a Northeast guy too. I grew up in New Jersey. And I saw that you were a Yankee fan, right? Like I was doing my homework on you and a
Of
little bit like,
course.
yeah, Michael
Yeah.
K was your guy, right? Is
Yeah,
that
well, really the Knicks. So, Mike
nice? Okay.
Breen,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
who's been on the podcast, and I love that guy.
That's got to be so full circle for you if you had him on your podcast. That's legit.
Yeah, it's funny too. One thing I didn't even mention. So I host this show called the Crew League, which is rappers and their entourages playing basketball against each other.
Yeah.
We're 4 seasons in. Diddy and Chris Brown are the EPs, and it's been a lot of fun. But I asked Mike for all the tips about how to broadcast and not lose your voice when you're doing 5 games in a day, and
Yeah.
he gave me some really, valuable advice. He was like, don't talk on the phone before you broadcast because when you talk on the phone, you tend to raise your voice
That's
and it
cool. Yeah.
strains your vocal cords without you even knowing.
Yeah.
And then tea and honey, those two things,
That's the
save
remedy for the throat,
you.
maybe, right? That's what a lot of singers use, that tea and honey.
I'm sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So let's backtrack. You were in high school when you started Hoops Nation, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's amazing to me. And I read an article kind of like when I was just doing some background stuff and it made a lot of sense, right? You got to start this project from a purely passionate place. Like you wanted to be a broadcaster, maybe baseball first, but then turned into, basketball love and that kind of stuff. So talk to me a little bit about starting something as a passion and then I think that's how things organically grow into successful things. So maybe talk to us a little bit of that journey and how that worked out for you.
Well, yeah, I definitely think for anybody to be crazy enough to do something without making money for a long enough period of time to make it successful without anybody working for you, yeah, you got to be passionate about it, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just gonna quit, when it gets really difficult, which is 100% of the time, it's going to get difficult. So yeah, I really like basketball and I like
Yeah.
media, and I was a terrible student. So, the combination of those things sort of led me to the inevitable result of me just trying things. And before Hoops Nation, it was a fantasy actually before it was a fantasy basketball site, then it turned into an NBA outlet. Then I tried MLB and NFL, and that didn't work. And then I tried Hoops Nation. So Hoops Nation was actually the
Let's go.
fourth media company I started. Yeah, the other ones were like sort of successful, but
Yeah.
like tens of thousands, not millions,
Right.
or
That's pretty amazing to think, right? Because there's a lot of people that are like tens of thousands. That's amazing. But you understood the market and the attention, right? And that's where it was like your market is your answer. Like if basketball was the millions one, like obviously that's the one that you're going to put most of your attention into, right?
well, yeah, and I liked it more. And like, in the first question you asked, it's all about passion. So if I'm gonna be passionate about it, and I ran it by myself for the first 3 or 4 years.
Damn, that's badass.
I didn't even let anybody else into the account
I
until
love that.
until I mean, like right before COVID, basically.
Yeah,
And I've been, the team's run it ever since. But uh
very
yeah,
cool.
man, gotta be
Yeah,
passionate about it. But take trial and error and try things. Some things work, some things don't. The first couple didn't really work. The one of them like sort of worked, and then Hoops Nation sort of worked too.
I love that. I mean, that's so I have a collectibles business here, and that's where we're sitting in the retail shop. But there's always different innovations in the business and within the business, and that's what I tell some of our employees and even customers like, hey, we're going to try different things, we're going to put stuff out there on social, we're going to see what works, what doesn't. You guys are going to be the answers, so if something fails or doesn't look good, don't get offended or anything. We just know it's not going to work and we're going to try something else. So I really appreciate that coming from you, especially at such a young age, because I feel like kids nowadays want that immediate gratification type stuff. But sometimes trial and error and having to fail are your best metrics.
Well, I think immediate gratification, or desensitizes you very quickly. And on top of desensitizing you, it just leads to burnout 100% of the time, especially in like a short form content world. Everybody's going to get burnt out. The average creator lifespan is shorter than the average NFL career, and that's saying a lot.
Wow, that's a crazy stat. That's wild. But I mean, that makes sense, right? I mean, and you think about two people that go viral, it's like you hear about them or they have a moment, right? And then it's like it's gone. So no, I appreciate that. I mean, you're such a young kid, right? I say you're a kid, but did your parents support this stuff? Like, how does that, talk to me a little bit about your upbringing and kind of that stuff. Like, who was influential in your life and encouraged you to kind of take this route?
Yeah, they were always very supportive. They wanted me to do well in school, obviously what parents don't, but I'm dyslexic, ADHD, and those sorts of things never fare well in a traditional, like school curriculum.
Correct.
On top of like I'm literally terrible at anything I don't care about. So naturally
Yeah.
I was a pretty subpar student. So that the combination of just doing things on my own, like broadcasting and starting these pages and platforms, and having some success doing it, combined with not being the best student, didn't they had no choice but to be supportive of that,
Exactly.
because that's what I was going to do
Man, I love
from
that.
a very young age. So they've always been very supportive. And the college thing was big, like not even applying. Out of my 550-person graduating class, I was the only person. And I remember everybody was, and this is in 2018 too, so everybody was making fun of me for it or whatever, saying that, talking about it. Teachers said the same stuff. And it's funny now because those same kids didn't even get to go to college because of COVID.
Oh wow, I didn't even think about that. That's right.
So
Yeah. And now look at you. And COVID was the best thing for you in your career and broadcasting, right? When everybody just had this kind of stuff to watch.
oh
So
yeah, it
your
changed.
content was
COVID,
perfect. Yeah.
I mean, as messed up as it is to say, greatly benefited media.
Yep.
Especially early 2020, we were growing by 400,000 followers a month on TikTok,
Oh
which
my
is like
God.
insane.
That's insanity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that we actually just set our new record last month for there, but yeah, the beginning that we were doing like 400 million impressions a month. and now
Holy
we're doing
shit.
600 million. But yeah, then it was say it go like up and down and up again. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Congratulations, man. That's absolutely insane. What does a kid like that do with all, like, once, you work your ass off for a long time and you put in that work like you talked about, 2 3 years not making money and you're by yourself. What happens when something like COVID like that, flips your whole life? Like, did you go build a team? Did you hire people? Did you, collaborate with a lot of people?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully it was successful enough, for me to live alone in New York, like for 2 years before COVID.
Yeah.
And I was doing brand deals and things like that. But just getting older and being interested in more things opened up, me wanting to step away from day-to-day operations for that company and build other things like, subsidiaries and more of the podcast focused stuff and do more angel investing and advising. So yeah, COVID really opened up my thinking, like it forced a lot of people to take a step back and reevaluate what they wanted. And I was grateful at the time and still am grateful now that I had 7 years under my belt by the time I was 20. So I had a pretty good idea of what I liked and didn't like. And so now it's just like expanding from that. But yeah, every month, I feel like I'm basically launching a new business with a new team. I'm about to announce something new next week, which is really exciting in the artificial intelligence space. But yeah, just like a lot of different stuff, but just having as much fun as I can. But collectibles is a, big, 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 big chunk of that and makes me very happy, as I know it does the same for you. And I'm sure everybody listening.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, it's crazy to think that you're 22 years old because you're just with the success and the things that you've accomplished, the way you speak about things, the way you speak about your vision and going forward, and just it's really humbling. I appreciate just having the conversation with you. So I hope that you
Well, thank
continue
you.
to stay this way. It's really impressive. So I listen. I'm a Jersey guy, and Gary is, I've crossed paths with him a little. I never worked for him or anything, but was he pretty influential? Because I hear a lot of similarities, right, in your story growing up. You'd interned with him and stuff like that. Was he pretty influential in your career in life?
Yeah, more from afar than up close. When I was probably 15, I think my uncle or somebody in my family showed me one of his videos and was like, I think you'd like this guy.
Yeah.
And him and Casey Neistat, and there are a couple people who I was just like, that,
Yep.
that's what I want to do. That's who I want to be like. And now now I look back further in history. That's why I collect Lincoln and Washington. I admire those guys in a similar way that I do Gary and Casey.
Yep.
But yeah, I saw that stuff and I was like, yeah, I need to do whatever I can to meet this guy. I need to do
Yeah.
whatever I can to be around it at that age. And I, was able to, long story short, went to a class that he was speaking at, a Columbia graduate class while I was still in high school through asking around,
Yeah.
and then just walked up to him and introduced myself. It's all on video. It's on YouTube at like me at 15, just being like,
Yes.
hey, I'm Buster. This is what I do, and I love what you do. And then he was like, "Yeah, you should swing by the office." And it ended up turning into like a summer internship at Vayner.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was in the Vayner talent category. Not I wasn't working directly for Gary, but
Yeah.
at the company, and spent a little bit of time with him here and there. But you
Yeah.
know,
No.
he more from afar than up close. Like I'm sure that's how many feel about Gary.
Yeah, but I mean, you can see it in your DNA and kind of the way you go, and I think that's what's so special about Gary is he creates this culture, right? And the things that he talks about. And again, I never worked there or anything, but I've dealt with his team a bunch, and a couple people that work for him. And it's like he's done a great job in creating that culture. And then obviously even people that work on the talent side and things have been influenced by him. So I appreciate that a lot. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
a lot of people there are very good friends, and they're all really good people.
Yeah.
That culture is real. And VCon, which I moderated some panels at, was amazing. I definitely recommend coming to
Yeah,
the
I
next
had
one.
I have the ticket. I bought the NFT and everything. It was just like with the shop. I couldn't get up there that week. But I had it on my calendar for so long. So I'm definitely going next year, but that's cool.
Love it.
All right, so collectibles. Let's nerd out a little bit before I let you
Let's do
go.
it.
Do you have a podcast about collectibles, or are you just kind of in the world like collecting as a fun thing? You in it as a businessman? What's your pulse on it?
So I have a show called Talking Shop where
Yep.
I interview collectors, probably similar to this.
Yep.
And you've done 70 plus episodes of that, and then have about 5,000 short form content videos, just like 5 seconds me talking about a different asset that I think is cool. Um,
That's pretty
spoiler,
cool.
I think
Yeah.
most things are cool.
That's me. Like I'm
Obviously.
like I do a collectible catch up every week, and I'm like, well, guys, I think this is cool, so I'm going to talk about it. So
Yeah, it's basically everything
yeah,
for like real collectors.
yeah,
Uh, and then I have an agency that
very cool,
helps, brands in the sports card space with their digital presence and things of that nature. Um, and uh,
very cool.
and I am a collector.
Avid
I
collector. I see
collect
it on your wall
everything.
behind you. Yeah,
I
everything.
got, everything from SpongeBob hand painted backgrounds to Abraham Lincoln and George Washington to JFK to Babe Ruth to pop culture cards to drawings to artwork to tickets to type 1 photos to sketch production sketches to, yeah, basically everything. Post I
Yes.
love movie posters. I mean, you literally can't say something that I don't. I collect dinosaur fossils. I mean,
What? I love
sneakers,
this. I
clothing,
love this.
vintage t-shirts, paint, like there's video games. There's nothing that I don't, so I'm all over the
You got to
place.
come if you ever come to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. You got to come check out our shop because that's what people are like. What is this? I'm like, it's a collectible shop, and I'm like, if StockX had a retail shop, that's kind of me. If there's a resale value, if somebody collects it, if somebody likes it, there's a place for it here, or we're at least going to talk about it, know about it, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's the
yeah,
way to go.
man,
Yeah, one of my good friends, his name is Mike. He lives down in New Orleans. So I've been down a bunch of times and we've gone to a bunch of sports cards and stores in the area.
yeah,
Um, a bunch of which were super shady. So it's nice to hear that I'm sure you're aware.
yeah.
Like one guy was, I won't get into it, but I heard stories of people doing wrong down there. So I'm glad that you're there to right the situations.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I mean, honestly, why I started this was I played Major League Baseball. I had a cup of coffee in the major leagues for a little while and played professionally, but I was highly touted for a little while. So I did a lot of the autograph signings and the sports card, I did all that stuff, signed all the stickers, but it wasn't always a very enjoyable experience for me as the athlete. It was like you said, shady situations. It was weird, all that stuff. And then from a fan's perspective, collectibles, when I was done playing ball, I was started doing the same thing. I was going to card shops and I'm like, wait, these are all the same things when I was 10 years old. And like, it's this dusty, weird, shady, like all these things.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I want to set out to create a better experience for the consumer and the athlete, where it's a spot where the athlete wants to hang out and interact, and maybe other athletes and celebrities, entertainers are coming through. But then also the fans know, man, this is a fun spot. It's a cool spot. It's like, you never know who's going to walk in type vibe. And that's exactly what I was setting out to do in this space, was to try to change that, because and create a trusted community of people, that they wanted to break with, that they wanted to bring their collectibles to, that they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to shop with, and that kind of stuff. So that's it. And I feel like our stories are very similar. I was a huge collector when I was a kid, but then I started playing baseball and I wanted to be cool and fit in with the guys, right? So I wasn't collecting cards and stuff, and I went to sneakers. But then when I was done with ball, it was like, oh, I can combine all these things into a business, So it's
Yeah,
been
you were much cooler than I was at that age. I'll just
I
I'll
got
just
lucky that
say,
I could throw a baseball fast, and people thought
yeah,
that
I
was cool,
couldn't.
right?
Let's put this in perspective. I didn't make the JV basketball team as a sophomore.
Well, neither
We
did Michael
are,
Jordan, right? So
yeah, I didn't grow to 6'6" either.
that's the
I
key
went
right there.
I went and broadcasted girls JV field hockey.
That was your
that was my fallback
that's
for
amazing.
not making the
The
JV.
JV basketball.
Dude, I wish. Good for you, man.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. Is basketball your favorite? Was that your favorite sport growing up, or do you have other sports that you enjoyed watching?
Basketball and baseball for
Yeah,
sure. Now,
that was my thing.
also a New York Football Giants fan.
Yes.
And yeah, I like everything though.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, good, man. This has been a really, really great conversation. I really enjoy talking to people that, like I said, I think a lot of people land on your page. And again, it's my world, right? Like the kids that come in the shop, they, I'm sure know who you are and that kind of stuff. So it's cool to hear your story, get to know you a little bit, and just, 20 minutes of talking. You're a pretty humble, down to earth person. And I think a lot of people would be different in your shoes, you know, or I can't say everybody would be the same. And to hear that it started with passion and hard work, and that you're only 22 years old and you still have a lot of aspirations, you know, I think is extremely motivating to people. And like I said, I appreciate that, especially for a younger generation that, you know, that comes through my shop and that I get to see and be a part of too.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. And I'll just say, for anybody younger that's listening, I always encourage people to fail as many times as possible, because A, when you succeed, there's no choice but to be humble. And B, you learn something every time. So you got nothing to lose on both ends.
That's what I say. And I say that too, even in here in the shop, you know, with my couple employees, I say, hey guys, I'm trying the best to eliminate the fear of failure. Like, failure is an objective measure to show us what doesn't work and how we can get better and how we can improve. Right. So I think that's, I absolutely appreciate that. And I think that's what holds people back a lot, right? Is that failure, or they're not going to be accepted, or their shit might, you know, not hit or whatever, or they have all these expectations. So I appreciate you saying that for sure
Yeah,
too.
and those are all made up terms anyways. Like, the
Exactly.
and unless you're talking about losing a lot of money, I can't even think of what failure is. And even then, if you're alive, you can make it
You
back.
can just
The
go
only
make
real
more.
the only real failure is like getting hit by a car or something. That's failure.
Right. Dying, or somebody that you truly care about getting sick and dying, right? Like, that's like real life, that's failure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good, man. Well, let everybody know maybe like some things that you're working on. I know you said you got some, you know, of an announcement you probably can't make, but what's in the works? What's next? Like, what's the next trend or thing that you're going to be working on?
A lot of the same stuff. Just looking for companies that I really care about that I can help, whether it be on the agency side, personal side. I like making fun content about things that I like, but I think this is true. I alluded to it earlier, but for any content creator, if that's your main focus, burnout is inevitable. So I like to look at it as like a long tail thing. It's, how I've been able to do podcasts for 4 years and hopefully plan on doing it for the next 50.
Yeah.
So a lot of different stuff though. Crew League season 4 is currently coming out, one episode a week. The last one was Quavo and Roddy Rich. That was a fun one.
That's so
Got
awesome.
some Yeah, I got some good ones coming.
Did
And
you
then
start that? You started that project?
I didn't start it. No, they
Okay.
brought me in before season 1. So I've
Very cool.
hosted every episode,
That's
through
so
4
cool.
seasons. We had Jack Harlow, Drake, Drewski, a
Yep.
lot of fun people. Aiden
Yeah.
Ross did a season with me. Um, yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of fun. But yeah, a lot of different stuff. I forget half the stuff, to be honest with
I
you.
can
But
imagine. Yeah.
long as we're having fun, my goal is just to keep having fun.
I love that, man. What about real quick tips for burnout? Do you have anything, you know, or things to keep you grounded? Like, so the reason I asked that is everything that you describe are hobbies of mine, right? And that's when people are like, oh, go do your hobby, but now my hobby is my work. Well, how do you separate and disconnect and kind of just be chill and stay the way that you are?
For me,
Yeah.
it's having a lot of balls in the air. So I have Hoops Nation in the air. I
Okay.
have Travel Nation. I have Cards Nation. I have the hobby. I've got the investments. I've got the collecting. I've got my podcast. I've got Talking Shop. I've got this new AI company I'm working on. Just a million things. So the
Yeah.
second I feel like I just bounce to the next thing. It's like
I
in The
love that.
Last
Yeah.
Dance, how Dennis Rodman is like snapping
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
That's how I try to think about avoiding burnout. It's just like jump from one thing and working out and exercising and eating healthy.
Right. Right.
As an athlete, I know you can attest to that, but that's a huge part of it too. You got to find some form of meditation. Some people like to meditate. Some people like to read. Some people like to work out. For me, I like working out.
I love that.
Can't really go wrong there. So
Exactly. No, that's so perfect. And I think that I resonate with that a lot, right? It's where what gets you energized, what gives you energy and things like that. So being able to bounce to different things, go work out, go do something. I mean, that's right on the head, bro. I
yeah,
love that.
hopefully, just try to be of value. That like it's like how giving makes you feel better than getting.
Yes.
That same concept applied to everything else, right? I want to be able to hop on a call and be of value to a ton of people because that makes me feel better than somebody giving me something of
Ultra.
of theirs.
Yep.
So I think that helps a lot for sure in thinking about it in that context.
Absolutely. No, that's 100% it, man. Well, good stuff, Buster. I appreciate you. I know is everything at Buster. I know for your personal.
Pretty much. pretty
Cool.
much.
That's simple.
Yeah.
And then I'll put everything in the show notes as far as all your podcasts and different shows and platforms. But is there anywhere specific that you want people that you try to direct people to, or you would want them to go to right now?
Don't need anything from anybody. I just hope people follow their passion. That's all. That's the only place I want people to go,
You're
is
the fucking
towards
man,
their
dude.
passions.
You're the fucking man, dude. I really, really, really appreciate the time. This has just been feels very genuine, and I'm gonna push this podcast out a lot because, like I said, I think you're a great symbol for a lot of young, aspiring, I don't even know, entrepreneurs, individuals, everything, in a new generation surrounded by attention and clout and all that stuff. You seem pretty humble and focused on the right thing. So I appreciate the time, dude.
Likewise, brother. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.